I was absolutely rattled at the crowd last night. I was up at the top of our section there, and you saw those holes in the upper bowl and a few holes in the lower bowl as well. And I think a lot of people's fears about what had happened to the overall support for this team, the season ticket base. Listen, I know that the crowd was, we talked about the home opener crowd not being where it was or where it should be, and that was sort of a topic on the weekend. But it didn't look like it did yesterday. And I know people didn't want to hear it in the offseason when the Jets sort of started and kind of pulled back that campaign, saying like we need to be in and around 13,000 season tickets to make this viable long term. To me, that was 5 alarms last night. If you're at the building and you looked around, realizing what has happened to what was one of the healthiest and most vibrant season ticket bases in the entire league, albeit in the smallest market.
Yeah, I agree with you too. You sat up there, and here's Brent Bellamy's video on Twitter. Shout out to Brent. Here's the crowd. You can see the empty seats there, and I agree. We were up there at the top, and I remember sitting up there. The first few seasons sold out every game, but it was even on the lower bowl. There were big empty sections, and they had their big campaign, and I don't know what the results of that were, but it was the lowest. It was the lowest attendance that they've had, not counting games where the pandemic, had because restricted attendance because of the pandemic. But I think it definitely stood out to a lot of people there. On the bright side, there was no lines for the bathroom or concessions for me. Overall, for the health of the franchise, certainly not ideal when you're having your lowest attended game ever.
Yeah. And again, this is something that's come up, I think, intermittently over the last couple of years, and I've been suggesting for a long time that there is somewhat of a reckoning coming for professional sports in general, specifically the National Hockey League, because the NFL, the NBA, even Major League Baseball to a degree, gets so much of their revenue from streams other than butts in seats. That's not the case in the NHL, and that's not the case here in Winnipeg with the Winnipeg Jets. And we all know what has happened with the cost of everything. We can talk about the price of tickets, which has consistently gone up, as has the salary cap and the HRR numbers and all of that, but it's all been on the backs of the fans. And it's not unique to Winnipeg, but what is unique to Winnipeg is the area that we've got here to get fans, to draw crowds, is a heck of a lot smaller than just about everywhere else in the National Hockey League by a considerable amount, which has meant that we kind of need everybody on board, and everybody that is able. I don't have the numbers on, what has happened, to compare the average hockey fan's earnings right now to what they have to pay when we're talking groceries, running their car, all the stuff that you need to have to live, compared to 2013, 2014, for instance. Listen, I can confidently say it has not gone in favor of the consumer. But at a certain point, these leagues and teams were going to tap people out. Now, we hear all of the sorts of things about pricing. I'll say this. It's still it's still the NHL. And I don't think it's possible to run a team in a smaller market in a league competing against Toronto and New York and Chicago and all these other teams and buildings and organizations and markets and expect to, charge people half what they do in other markets. But it's quite clear that there's a myriad of reasons why we were at a game last night with more empty seats than we have ever seen before. There's some element of frustration with the team by part of the fan base over the last number of years that I think has sort of built up, and that's contributed to it. And I'd love to say I'm coming on here with a bunch of answers. I've got a lot of experience in this field. I spent a good portion of my life selling season tickets, whether it be for the Jets in 1.0 at the end of their run, with the Manitoba Moose, trying to build that franchise up to a point where it was viable to maybe get an NHL team, obviously for the World Women's Hockey Championship. So, I mean, I do have some experience in what it takes to get butts in seats. A lot of people have asked me, what are they doing wrong? Like, I can't speak to that because, to be honest, I really don't know. But like I said, when we were having this conversation, probably in the summer around when the Forever Winnipeg came out, you can not like the message, but I hate to tell you folks, that message is true. Like, this franchise doesn't work long-term with 4,000 empty seats in the building. I mean, at a certain point, it gets to be, what's the point? I mean, you're losing tons of money, I would imagine. I mean, if that continued for an entire season, I'm sure it would be a bloodbath on the accounting pages. I mean, and that wasn't the way that it's been for a long time. So, I mean, listen, I don't think that it's a lost cause or anything like that. We're not counting down the days till they have to go somewhere else. But what I will say, that was a 5-alarm siren to the organization. I think to everybody in Winnipeg that is invested in having an NHL team here. And I think we all realize that, this city is night and day. I mean, so much of a different place to live. For most of us, some people don't care. Some people, it's completely off the radar. And I mean, I guess that will be the case in every market. But I know that there's some really, really serious conversations, I'm sure, going on within TN offices right now. I get it that there's a lot of people that just simply can't do it. But I think there's a lot of people that can, that for a myriad of reasons were in on tickets beforehand that aren't there. And I think for the good of everyone and this thing moving forward, and Winnipeg staying and being around here for a long time as a member of the National Hockey League, some things got to get figured out. Some actions need to be taken and some improvement needs to be seen, because that was, as they say, the game and the disappointment of, Dubois' return and all of that, to be honest, was almost secondary to me, Reem. And it was so great to have that group that we were with yesterday, because it really made me feel like, there are so many people that care about this team, and a lot of people that were in our group that aren't able to have season tickets, that aren't able to do a half season, but love the club, live and die with them every day, or with us every day on the chat, that figured, hey, this is a great way that I can sort of get in and get a piece of it and come to a game and come to some games with some other people. Hopefully we can grow that, because there's a whole lot of growing that needs to happen right now with the season ticket base. And I mean, there's two sides to it. And this is something that I can't speak to. I mean, I know a big part of it was trying to get into the corporate community and re-engage that group and kind of get our percentage of season tickets held by corporations closer to those of other NHL markets, because it was way down. And that comes out of the drive to 13,000. So many of those tickets, companies that would have loved to have had them, didn't get them because they were just picked up in a fair way on Ticketmaster. And then you've got groups of 6 and 8 and 10 people that are sharing seats. And for whatever reason, people move, things change, and all of a sudden those numbers come off the books. I mean, the corporate community has always been sort of where you start with your season ticket base. So, I mean, I hope things can be done there to re-engage them. And whether it's the new messaging, the messenger, bottom line is it's going to take a lot of work, and I think a lot of boots on the ground. And it's not a matter of a bunch of ads that are running on, radio stations and televisions that get people to just go online and buy season tickets or even buy individual tickets. I mean, the hockey team has an element to it too, but I mean, I think that from a hockey team perspective, there's been, definitely some advancement. I think some clear indications about where the team is going, some excitement about the young players in the future, some commitments to the team and players, as we talked about last week, that was very well received. But this is not an easy answer. But I think what is clear, at least to me, is that there's a ton of work that needs to happen. There's probably some things that need to be acknowledged, some actions that need to be taken to get some of these people that they have lost back behind the team, and most importantly, back in the arena.
Yeah, wow. Well said, Hustler. And you talk about individuals, a number of tickets. I know for me personally, and I've talked to a couple other people, a lot of people who are renewing their mortgages right now. Has my rate's gone up like almost double. I mean, how much more money is that per month that maybe was disposable for entertainment purposes before? Now, going for more of the essentials. And talk about corporate support. I see, Mike McIntyre, who wrote an article in the Free Press last November when the Jets couldn't sell out a game against Montreal, which is a bit of a shocker. Mike McIntyre reporting today, per our stories in April, 15% corporate support in Winnipeg, 45 to 85% corporate support in the 6 other Canadian markets. So I'm not sure how you fix the issue, but it was certainly going around, not just in Winnipeg. You're seeing people in chat saying, oh, we're there, and, definitely alarming, the lack of seats. But I think, around the NHL, Buffalo as well, they had 66% capacity, 12,600, just under the Sharks as well. I mean, Sharks are a last place team. They had 10,378. But I think Winnipeg's certainly a unique market compared to the rest of the league. And this is going to be a story all season. I mean, we wanted on Monday, we wanted to talk about how great the game was against Florida, how well the team has played, but it was attendance dominating for like 40 minutes in the chat, to the point where it's like, okay, relax. But I mean, after that Tuesday game, and we'll see what it is Thursday, where you have the lowest attendance that you've had since returning, especially after, the campaign that was put out last spring. A lot of people have opinions. I can see that.
But that campaign, like, I don't know if that even really got off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they sort of put that out. There was all this pushback from people going, oh my God, they're threatening to move the team. And like, I came on this program and said, listen, I didn't hear a lot of pushback from people that had seats. All the people that I knew that had season tickets were like, no shit. If the fan base crumbles and there's not enough people in the building, yeah, I mean, it wasn't a direct threat to do it, but it was a reminder of where we've been. And this is the thing that rattled me the most. And I had a conversation with a good friend yesterday that is of my vintage, that remembers 1.0 and that era. And again, early on in the 1.0 era, I was too young to really, understand what was going on, other than that there was a team here and it used to be in the WHA, and now we were in the NHL and Wayne Gretzky was coming to town and all that. But I'm certainly old enough and was around enough to understand what happened in those final couple years when the team left. And if you think about this, that was a 16-year period. I mean, 79 or 16, 17 years, whatever it was, from year one of the NHL moving from the WHA till the team moving to Phoenix. And I mean, I was going to say, I don't want to set off any alarm bells. The alarm bells are already off. I mean, the toothpaste is out of the tube. 2011, this team came in. It's 2023, 2024 right now. We're into year 12. And again, there's a lot that goes into this. And it is something that you could talk for 5 to 6 hours, and I'm not sure you get any clear, unequivocal agreement on a lot of things. There's a lot of influences and a lot of factors. But it is eerily similar to where we were in the early 90s, which preceded the team leaving. Again, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I certainly think that everyone needs to wake up, open up their eyes, and realize the situation that the team is in and govern themselves accordingly. There's not much more to say than that, other than it's the most shocking crowd. And again, like, maybe this resonates with me a lot more having been through it the first time. But listen, it was against all odds for us to even get a team back in the first place. And the honeymoon was incredible. And we had this great run. And I often think about the 2017-18 playoff run with just how crazy things were outside and what it did to the city, but also how in a lot of ways it nearly bankrupted Winnipeg and a lot of people, with the amount of tickets that they had through the playoff run, the cost, especially when we got down to the Western Conference Final. And maybe the most telling thing of it all, and this was the first sort of sign that I had of trouble, was the fact that final game in the Western Conference Final wasn't sold out. Now, the NHL were setting the prices for that game, and it was, I mean, they were $350, $400, $450. So, I mean, I get why that didn't work for a lot of people, and I totally understand why people that had been to a bunch of other games in that situation weren't there. And I always wonder what the Stanley Cup final would have been like if those tickets were even more on that, if people would have physically been able to make it to the games. So pricing is part of it, but there is way, way more to it than that. I mean, we're still seeing big crowds for particular concerts, when there is a demand to do it. There's probably a part of, I mean, there's a number of people that used to go to all the games like, whatever, I'm just going to watch the game at home and whatnot. Like, it's so concerning right now. And obviously, we're interested in feedback. We will and have already talked about what, I mean, the organization has done, the missteps that they've taken. I mean, as someone that has a good background in how to take care of customers and season ticket holders, I think there were some big misses early on. Some of those things were mishandled, but we're now at a situation where it is incredibly alarming. And I hate to tell you, folks, for the weekday games for the foreseeable future, I'm not sure this is going to be that different. So if you didn't believe what you thought might be happening, we saw it last night, like right in front of our faces. And if you weren't at the game, you saw it on social media and you saw people talking about it. And I think we as a city, as a fan base, and certainly True North as an organization needs to get together and try and find a way to not only stop the erosion of the fans that have left, but do what they can to get a lot of them that they've lost back. And I think there's going to be a lot of work to go on it. But I'll put this out for the Why Not question of the day for Not Autocorp in Waverly and McGillivray. If you are somebody that had seats, maybe you were a part of a seat holder group before, because I know there's a ton of you out there, or had your own seats and you don't have them now, you let us know why, or bottom line is, maybe not necessarily why, what could be done, what can be done right now to get you back in the building, to be more regular for an NHL team in Winnipeg. Because that's what I think everybody needs to know, and those are the actions that need to be taken to get this thing going back in the right direction and prevent another couple years of conversations like this, and God forbid an end like we had the first time around.